As we begin 2026, we're taking time to look at the issue that's happening all across Utah, domestic violence. As you'll hear, it's especially prevalent during this season.
Make sure we have 1 or 2 detectives that are on call and ready.
This time of year can be a nightmare for domestic violence victims.
Right after Thanksgiving, it gets really bad.
Salt Lake City Police Sergeant Elizabeth Johnson works in the Domestic Violence Detective Division.
I do think that the cases spike up more just right after the holiday. I think some people try to just kind of keep it together, especially if they have children. Everyone tries to get along more, but then right after it all comes out, so like the first week of January, it gets really bad.
However, some family members and friends may know or suspect abuse is happening.
So that's kind of where it started for me.
That was the case for Joni Michael, a domestic abuse survivor.
I knew I was in a bad situation, but I was too scared to say anything to anyone because he would threaten to kill my family and stuff. And then I just was embarrassed.
Did your mom at any point try to intervene and tell you you don't have to live this way? Did your father try to tell you that?
Yeah, in their own special ways. Like with my biological mom, she's a little rough around the edges, love her dearly, but she's just like, why are you being dumb? You're being a dumb bitch, you know better. But with my parents, it was we love you. We see how great you are. You deserve more, right? We just wish you loved yourself.
And I found out after the fact that
Lindsay Hackford, another survivor, shared her perspective when returning to her then husband.
my parents knew he had gotten physical and he was abusive, and so clearly they were concerned, but they had no way to get a hold of me. And if they did, I shut it down very aggressively because it was abusive the day I went back. There was no love phase. There was no nice.
Hackford says she had to face the reality of her situation and decide to leave.
But it was hard for me to accept that. And there was nothing that anyone was going to say to me to change my mind or make me leave any sooner.
She advises family and friends of abuse victims to remember this and
be there for them. Be that support person and just be there when they ask for help, because you don't know when that time is going to be, and maybe it's the time they leave, maybe it's not, but the time that you shut that person out, they probably won't come back to you.
Or sometimes people don't realize that it is domestic abuse. They think because there wasn't physical abuse or somebody hasn't been hit yet, that it's not domestic violence, and not realizing the layers of maybe isolation and financial abuse and emotional abuse that have happened before that.
Ashley Taylor, executive director with the Refuge Utah, says people should look for the warning signs.
It's always those changes where suddenly maybe they're not able to come out anymore and come out for a girls' night, and suddenly they're not allowed to do that, or they're using words like, well, I'm not allowed to spend money on this, or I'm not allowed to call these certain people.
Taylor says it's important to approach the topic with victims very carefully.
Because they're in that relationship, they're in a relationship with someone that they love. And from the outside, it may be something that you just want to say, they're not treating you okay. That's not a way you should be treated. But from inside the relationship, you love that person, right? And so hearing that may be very defensive, and sometimes they've been manipulated to say, no one else understands us, only I understand you, right? So rely on me, don't rely on other sources.
Just listening to them.
Sergeant Johnson says keeping the communication lines open with victims is important and making them feel comfortable opening up about it.
But also just telling family members and neighbors to make the victim feel comfortable in talking about it and not judging them for it, because I think it's only natural as human beings to be so frustrated. Why don't you just leave? We all know that he's awful or she's awful. Why don't you just leave? And then families starting to get frustrated because their family member or their loved one isn't listening to their advice, when it's just listen to them and just be that person. And when they are ready to leave, they will. But if you're not that person that just sits there by them and listens to them, then maybe they won't leave. Maybe they won't come to that conclusion.
What would you tell someone who might be in a home where domestic violence is present and they feel hopeless and they see you? What would you tell them?
There is hope. Sorry. There is hope. There is hope, and there are people that are here to support you and show you the possibilities. I think it's hard to see when you are isolated and in those situations that there's any sort of hope, but it exists, it's there. And we have advocates that are ready and waiting to talk through what choices do you have, what opportunities are there, what resources are there.
You know in your heart of hearts that you deserve better.
Joni Michael offers this message to victims struggling to leave their abusers.
Just because you've made mistakes and maybe you stayed longer than maybe you should have, you're just trying to survive. And I'm proud of you for that. But please recognize that you deserve better.
Over the years, police departments have evolved in how they investigate crimes and to offer help to people. In Utah's largest city, police officers assigned to domestic violence cases are incorporating resources to better support victims, while also not overlooking the importance of the human element.
My husband and I have been having issues for the last year.
I mean, domestic violence victims have kind of a different victimology.
Sergeant Elizabeth Johnson is with the Salt Lake City Police Department's Domestic Violence Detective Division. She says victims, especially those with children, struggle to leave their abusers.
Because that means breaking up the family, or am I able to survive financially without this person, or do I have to find a new home?
Salt Lake Police are now using a different approach in helping victims by utilizing assistance from victim advocates. These are trained individuals who can help to meet the basic needs of victims more quickly, while officers continue their investigations.
As a victim advocate, we could be called out to scene and work directly with patrol. We could be going to court with victims.
Jessica Steed is the Victim Advocate Program Supervisor for Salt Lake City PD.
So you all go out with officers for every call that comes in, or how do you determine that?
So not for every call. It just kind of depends on the situation. So sometimes we may not be at capacity to go out to every single domestic violence call, because there are a lot of them.
Steed says her department regularly faces difficulties.
Living in society now is expensive. So do we have access to food pantries? Sometimes we have to lean into a lot of community partners to cover all the basic needs for our survivors. And sometimes they just aren't enough.
We take in cases and investigate them with the knowledge that...
Sergeant Johnson says her department has its challenges too, getting 450 to 500 cases related to domestic violence on average each month.
Are you seeing more cases?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like when I look at our stats, I feel like the strangulations specifically have gone up.
Sergeant Johnson says out of the hundreds of cases sent to her department each month, she only has 6 detectives handling them. And the cases keep coming in. Despite the ongoing challenges, these two are determined to help as many domestic violence victims as possible.
I always say let's look for small success in some of these, whether it be a victim was able to report that day and wanted to connect with us.
You start the case at the very beginning, and I've seen them grow, go to therapy, and just survive, and I just think it's awesome, because what they've been through was horrific, but what's come out on the other side was just beautiful. It means a lot to me.
This year has changed you.
I think the 18 years has changed me. But this year is probably not, it was one of my harder years. But just the whole thing, the whole career kind of shapes you and changes. I think every officer will tell you that. I just think there's a lot of cases. It's a lot of work. It's not something that can be done in 40 hours. If you care about the victims and you want them to have, like a good investigation, it does start to wear on you because it's stressful. I think that's probably one of the reasons why it's frustrating and difficult. And plus, we just don't have a lot of officers. Everyone's kind of overworked.
Surviving domestic violence comes with many stories and lessons. Joni Michael shares hers.
He just was a violent person.
Joni Michael shared some of her experiences from past abusive relationships and lessons learned.
He locked you up at one point?
Yeah, he would keep me in our dog cage.
For how long?
Hours, overnight, like a day or two. It just kind of depended on what mood he was in.
How large of a dog cage are we talking?
Like, you know, you have to like be on like your hands, and you can't like stand up in it or sit. Like you can kind of sit like that.
You couldn't get any water. You couldn't get any food.
No, I wasn't really allowed to eat at that time.
You weren't allowed to eat either?
Because he wasn't eating because of the heroin. And his dad would send money, but all the money went to drugs and rent, so then we didn't have food for groceries.
At what point did you realize, I need to get out of here?
When he put the gun in my mouth.
What you just heard is one example of the trauma Joni has experienced in dealing with abusive relationships. A different relationship was with Caden Allen Beckstrom, who she ended up living with. Their relationship lasted roughly 3 months, which turned into a living hell for her. Joni soon discovered she was pregnant and broke up with Beckstrom following one of his arrests.
And then he got out. And then I let him come back because he was gonna be homeless and didn't have any money, had nowhere to go, and I was like, whatever. And he asked me, you know, like, when can we get back together? And I was like, we're not getting back together. Like, I don't know where these ideas are coming from. And he picked me up and he threw me on the bed so hard that it broke the metal support bars underneath my bed.
Joni says for an hour she struggled to protect herself.
Him slamming me up against walls, punching me in the face. I know I passed out at one point in the kitchen, and he's huge. He's like 6'4", and he was like 200 pounds at the time. And he just grabs me, and I just remember my feet not touching the ground anymore. And like, when you're screaming that much at somebody and just screaming in general from pain and the adrenaline's going, it's hard to catch your breath as it is. You feel like you ran a freaking marathon. And then I just remember that god-awful blue paint, just staring at it and being so mad that that was the last thing I was gonna see, and just apologizing to my baby. And then Salt Lake City police open the door. He drops me, runs to the other side of the house into his room.
Hey, come out here. Come out, let me see your hands. Put your hands up.
Police arrived just in time. A neighbor heard Joni's screams and called 911, which saved her life.
You got me on the phone. What's up, bud? What's up?
More than 10 police officers had to stop Beckstrom. He was put in a restraint device. A spit mask was put over his head.
Fuck you, you good? Fuck you.
Beckstrom, who is a repeat domestic violence offender, was convicted of third-degree felony assault of a pregnant person for the attack on Joni and third-degree felony assault by prisoner and sent to the Utah State Prison in Salt Lake.
And the baby?
Died. Yeah. I think that was the hardest part of all of it, was losing my baby. Because like that was what was getting my life together. I was getting my life together for my baby. And then I tried to kill myself in September, because this all happened on July 24th of 2023. And on September 24th, I tried to kill myself. And I was at Salt Lake Behavioral Health for a week. No, I was only there for 4 days.
Joni found strength to move forward with her life and carries a message to anyone dealing with abuse to find a way out.
What I would have to say is, you know in your heart of hearts that you deserve better. Even if you don't love yourself now, you deserve the chance to love yourself. Because I finally accepted that, like, no, like, you deserve to be treated like the princesses in the Disney movies. You deserve to not be scared to fall asleep. You deserve to love yourself. Just because you've made mistakes and maybe you stayed longer than maybe you should have, you're just trying to survive. And I'm proud of you for that. But please recognize that you deserve better.
Resources and shelters designed to help Utah's domestic violence victims are facing an uphill battle. I visited one such place to find out why.
Now, come out, let me see your hands. Put your hands up.
For nearly 40 years, thousands of victims of physical or sexual violence have turned to the Refuge Utah for help.
I felt like I didn't deserve it.
Including Lindsay Hackford, a domestic violence survivor of Spanish Fork. She, with her 3 children, received housing assistance and escaped her abusive husband.
And that was huge to me being successful, because it helped me regain the confidence in being a mom and being my own adult. And I still attribute them and my victim's advocate to the 2 things that made me successful in leaving him and staying gone.
We've consistently seen an increase, especially in the crisis calls that we're getting and people looking for help.
I met Ashley Taylor, Executive Director for the Refuge Utah.
Discussing domestic violence, is that taboo in Utah?
I think for a while it was. I think more and more there's more greater awareness around it. We have Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The governor signed a declaration that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Utah.
But lawmakers did not prioritize domestic violence funding during the 2025 legislative session. Millions of dollars in cuts or reduced funding impacted various programs and initiatives designed to help victims.
I just want my kids and I want to leave. I don't want to be.
Like Lindsay.
I'm terrified. I'm so scared.
I passed a bill 2 years ago.
Two lawmakers earlier this year told 2 News that was unacceptable.
If the shelters are just saying, sorry, we're full, that's a failure, and I do feel partially responsible for that. We had a tight budget year, and then at the end of the session it got much tighter because about $100 million that we were counting on spending all of a sudden disappeared.
I don't know what pulled the funding toward the end of the budget process, but I'm going to find out. I do think that we should prioritize domestic violence funding because it is a significant problem.
Services like the Refuge Utah are now operating with less funding and the crippling need for more space.
For us, unfortunately, especially for our emergency shelter side, we have the same emergency shelter that we've had this whole time, and we have 25 beds.
25 beds, but then how many more need the beds?
Right. Last year we had over 450 requests for shelter that we couldn't fill because our facilities were full.
So the funding is not where it needs to be for you all to meet the growing need for victims.
Especially in Utah County, our population is growing daily. And we've seen since we've existed, we opened up in 1984, and since then the population in our area has tripled.
Taylor says those emergency beds cover Utah and Juab counties. According to the 2024 U.S. Census Bureau, Utah County alone has approximately 750,000 people, and Juab County roughly 13,000.
So how do we help keep up with that need and keep increasing to meet the needs of the community when the funding is not always increasing?
From victim to becoming a voice of hope as a domestic violence survivor, the woman that you're about to meet at one point found herself feeling stuck. Her determination and love for her children fueled her. She fought her way out of an abusive marriage and ultimately found a better life.
My husband and I have been having issues for the last year. Tonight it got really bad and I told him that I couldn't fight like this anymore.
Police body cam footage from January 2nd of 2021 shows a terrified Spanish Fork mother of 3 telling officers about her latest round of abuse from her then husband.
All of this happened on Sunday and I stayed because I want to make it work and I do love him. He got angry again and I got scared, and so I told my kids, like, let's go to Grandpa's for a little bit. Like, I don't want to leave. I love Dad. I don't want to do this, but I'm scared and I shouldn't be scared.
In this moment, Lindsay Hackford decided to get out and stay out of her abusive marriage.
He threw my stuff in garbage bags and pushed me out the front door. My kids wouldn't leave because they were scared. I hate this. I did this a year ago with Spanish Fork Police. And I am terrified. I just want my kids and I want to leave. I don't want to be here. I'm terrified. I'm so scared.
Not long after this encounter, Lindsay got the help she needed.
As soon as my jury trial concluded, I had received services from the Refuge Utah, and when I left, they were able to get me and my children into an apartment within 6 days of his final arrest.
According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, each year, an estimated 10 million people are physically abused by an intimate partner.
And the first time that he got physical with me was October 31st, 2019.
More than 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men in the U.S. have experienced rape, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime.
And I did go stay with my parents, and I did tell them, you know, he hit me, he was physical. They knew all of that, but I chose to go back, and when I did go back, I cut them off completely. I had no communication with them from Christmas until after his arrest. I think it was a couple days after his final arrest that I ended up calling them.
Women generally experience the highest rates of intimate partner violence from ages 18 to 24 and 25 to 34.
Did he hit you tonight?
Earlier today, he got in my face and grabbed my face when he threw me out the door, shook my face and threw me out the door.
Lindsay falls in that statistic, but came out a survivor and sharing her story.
I want people to understand why I made the decisions that I made, why I stayed with someone for 18 years that I thought loved me that clearly didn't, and everyone on the outside could see it. So I was gone for 6 weeks, and I went back, and when I went back, I was still the only one employed, but he removed my name from the bank account. Well, and I remember the last year, I didn't leave because I didn't love him. I left because I know I would have died if I would have stayed.
Lindsay's past pains couldn't overshadow her now elevated life with her new husband and their expanded family.
He was a firefighter for 18 years, and I think it just allowed him to show up for me and my children in a way that no one else could, because he had seen the worst parts of the world and trauma and things that normal people can't tolerate. And no matter what we said, no matter what emotion we were feeling, he was able to hold space for all of us.
Lindsay's message is simple. There's hope, and she knows she's reaching people.
I have so many people that message me and just say, like, I wish I was that brave. I wish that I could say the things that happened to me. And I think it just makes me kind of angry, because that was my life. I didn't ask for any of that to happen to me, but I should have every right to talk about my experiences.
In closing, it's been said for many people, the toughest part in getting help is asking for it, and that takes courage. We're putting up a lifeline to help you make that first step, a phone number, connecting you to a person who can help guide you out of abuse. And remember, help is available. We want to thank you for joining us for this 2 News special. I'm Jamie McGriff.